Hey, thanks for coming to part 2 of this episode. If you want to find part 1, check the show notes below for a link, or click the info card at the top of the screen right now. Otherwise, please enjoy the rest of the show. So that's what I was going to ask for more clarification on, because I've done Facebook ads. It's not even worth commenting what I've done.
Yeah,
I don't think that I've done them as well as I could. So I have to ask just stupid questions.
No.
Where do you even look to know what the click-through rate, what the actual follow-through rate has been in that chain of events between this is how much it cost me to get them to click. They went there. What's the follow-up? How do you read the follow-up?
So Facebook Ad Manager will tell you how much you're paying per click, and then you have to go into Kickstarter and look at okay, this is how many people we've had come in through Facebook. Like Kickstarter will tell you specifically the URL that these people came from, and so you can track. Okay, they came in through this ad. This is how many people backed our project from this ad, and that's why we knew that Board Game Geek was a terrible investment for us, because we paid $2,500 and we got 30 people to back our project, maybe even less than that. And it was this is terrible return on investment. So yeah, you just sort of, you have to follow the through line and be okay, well, like I said, the clicks are costing me 25 cents, but out of those clicks, 25 clicks or whatever, I get one conversion. So then you sort of do a little bit of conversion math and realize okay, this one purchase cost me $5 or whatever it is. I'm just pulling numbers. I can't do the math in my head. But that's how you'll know, okay, this is my cost per acquisition. And once you know that number, you can just, like I said, build it into the cost of your product. So.
Okay. All right.
And sometimes it's not that direct. Like with a Kickstarter, it is that direct. But let's say you're advertising for your Instagram and you just want to build followers. That doesn't have a direct acquisition, right? You're assuming that paying the money for that ad is going to get you followers, which then eventually turns into money, potentially. Or it turns into social credibility, because that unfortunately is a thing where if somebody has more followers on whatever, they seem like they're a more successful artist.
So the key word here is analytics, and
yes,
for the other uninitiated in the audience like myself, figure out even just where you go to look for those analytics. Type into Google, maybe where do I find the analytics for Kickstarter? Where do I find the analytics for Facebook advertisements? Because I feel like these are a lot of behind the scenes things that maybe people don't think about, that if they knew more about it. Yeah, go ahead.
Kind of feels like alchemy if you don't really know what's going on, right? You're oh, people are just making money off these ads, right? But Facebook Ad Manager is where all that information is. Part of it is you kind of have to know how to read it, I guess, but cost per click is really the most important thing. And then Kickstarter also just gives you all that data. It's just in the back end somewhere. I want to say it's just they have an analytics section or something, but you're just sort of matching up where people are coming from and how much you're spending on it to get them from that source. Yeah.
Isn't there also a way to integrate Facebook ads into your website so you know who's been to your website and you can advertise to them on Facebook?
I would imagine so. I don't know how to do it, but there's all kinds of stuff that you can figure out. There's tracking data on this person that came from your website to Facebook to wherever, but I don't know how to do it that granular at this point.
The wisest among us probably don't. I feel like that like you said, alchemy. So much of this is so cryptic, and so weird. It's decoding the fucking pyramids or something. But coming back to Kickstarter whole hog, and the numbers there. Let's talk a little bit more about the chunk that Kickstarter takes. They take a fair amount. Maybe you could tell us a little bit more about what somebody can expect to have taken from their from the pledge amounts, and what are some ways that you can minimize the amount that Kickstarter is going to take from you, or offset the amount of damage that's going to do. Blake, you want to start with that one?
Sure. I don't remember the exact amount that they took.
I think it was 30%. Does that sound
30?
right?
Is it that much?
A third. That sounds like a lot.
I mean,
so they take a 5% fee off the top, and then they also take payment processing fees. So, Yeah, I don't know about 30%. That seems really high to me.
Let's see if I can find the exact.
But remember, you have to pay taxes too, so don't forget about taxes.
That's very true.
Right.
That might be the 30% number.
Well, Blake is looking for more information on that.
Yeah, 3 to 5%. Sorry.
Gavin, do you have some thoughts on that, on like what people can do to sort of offset?
I mean, maybe this is a hot take, I guess, but like I kind of don't even worry about it. I'm like, it's part of just doing business within the Kickstarter ecosystem. Like, if you're really concerned about getting that 5% taken out, then don't run a Kickstarter. Like, instead, you could run pre-orders through your own website or something like that, right? There's other alternatives, but it's I don't know. I'm sure there's ways to kind of minimize your exposure to the Kickstarter fees, like the getting a pledge manager that'll handle shipping separately, but like even the pledge managers are going to take a percentage. So
yeah, I'll take the heat for that, because I wrote that question thinking it was 30%, but I probably just saw the tax percent.
Yeah. Make sure you build in like 30% for taxes. Yeah, that is real. Yeah. But I guess I just see it as kind of cost of doing business. There's going to be fees involved. People need to get paid. So I don't know. I think it's just part of being in the Kickstarter system. So I don't think that's a very helpful answer, but
no, that's the correct answer at this point, having been the different percent than what I had thought about.
Yeah, we had different information. So you cleared.
If it was 30%, then definitely you would.
Yeah, I would like.
I don't remember worrying about it too much. I think the number that I was most concerned about was getting my shipping correct, because those numbers can really surprise you.
Yep.
Like, I was shocked that it cost me like $20 to send a deck of playing cards to Australia.
Yep.
Like, unbelievable numbers.
That's why we did distribution the way that we did. So and again, that's something that is like usually done on much larger projects, but for us it was like, we want to figure this out so we can build our business further, and when we are hopefully larger, we'll already know how to do it. But yeah, otherwise, you're gonna have to charge a substantial amount for any international backers. The other thing you can do to try to take your game or whatever you have as a mock-up and mail it to yourself, and make sure that like, okay, this is how much it's going to weigh. Like, it's going to cost you more to mail it from, I'm in Oregon. Let's say I'm mailing something to New York. That's going to cost more than me mailing it to myself, but at least you'll know how much it's going to weigh
right
accurately, that sort of thing.
Yeah. I bought myself a scale. I bought a label maker. I bought, I actually did stamps.com to do everything. That way I knew everything. I had everything right in front of me, so that I wasn't walking up to the post office with a crate of 500 decks of cards to ship. Like,
everybody in line is like, what is this guy doing?
So do all that figuring out beforehand, and it'll save you.
Make sure you weigh your packaging materials too. Don't just weigh the product.
Yeah, not just the product, the packaging material.
In the bubble wrap, in the box, all of it. Yeah.
Yeah, you'll be surprised at the difference. I mean, 1 ounce going over will make a huge difference.
Tape it. Make sure it's taped too. Like, do it ready to go.
I feel like this could have been 2 podcasts: starting a Kickstarter and running it, and then the post mortem, like shipping. Just a fucking podcast on shipping.
I'm so glad that my business partner is a logistics guy. I'm like, all right, man, it's all you. I'm done.
I'm just glad that all I had to do was decks of cards. And there's a lot of shipping products and stuff. Like, I found boxes online, shipping boxes built just for single and double playing cards. And I'm like, perfect. I'm just going to use these, and they're great. I mean, I bought even more because I also sell like Magic the Gathering cards on the side just for fun, but so they work in there too. But that kind of goes back to what we were talking about too, with like add-ons or stretch goals and things like that. Like, make sure all of that can fit in the right packaging too, because that can also screw you. One thing that I kind of regret doing actually was doing add-ons of prints, because after thankfully only a couple of people bought those, but then once people bought prints in addition to their deck of playing cards, I'm like, oh, how do I package this?
How do I ship this to them? Yep.
Yeah. How do I ship this stuff?
That's a problem. That's a problem we ran into with the playmats. Like, our special edition had a playmat, which they weigh a lot, and they're also not like our hold on. see if I still have it here. Here's the box for the game, right? So we got the game, and now we have a playmat.
Yeah.
How do we? What do we do?
You ship the box wrapped in the playmat. That's your packaging.
Perfect. Yeah.
Little piece of duct tape around it. You're fine. You're good.
Playmat right here. Look at that. It's like I planned it.
Nice. Exactly. That was exactly the problem I had with the prints. So I had to, like, originally I would I would ship the prints like with cardboard backings. They would, ship flat, and I'd send them that way. But with this, I had to take them out of that packaging, roll it up, put it in the tube, and then put like the deck of cards like in between it.
Oh
like,
no!
It was so ghetto. But I'm like, I don't want to ship 2 packages.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was one thing. I'm glad I was reminded of that. Think about that. When you have add-ons, what if this and this are purchased together? How are you going to ship it?
I remember hearing from multiple places that there's books will ship for less than for other materials. So would it make sense to ship like art books instead of playmats if you have them?
I mean, so there's media mail, which is a different way to ship books, but it's very slow. So keep that in mind first. It's actually a trick that some artists will do is if they're selling a book, you can sell prints as add-ons, and then you make sure that the prints can fit inside the book, and then you slide those prints into the book, and you put it in a box and ship it media mail, and nobody knows the difference. So. But yeah, that's, I think, kind of the deal there.
Did either of you guys, Blake talked a little bit about this much earlier in relation to the streaming that he does on Twitch, and that sort of being a type of advertisement, community building, building up hype around the release. Is there anything else that you have thoughts about in terms of bringing people's awareness up to speed aside from advertisement? I'm thinking mainly in terms of a mailing list. Do either of you guys keep a mailing list? Recommend doing that as part of your Kickstarter lead up? And a follow up to that, what do you guys do to draw people into that newsletter?
I guess I'll talk about what I do first. So my mailing list is all people that I've acquired through conventions. So, when I'm doing a show, I've got my whole setup there. My email list is like front and center. It's like, okay, this is my, get on my list. And I try to make it as easy as possible for people. So some people use like an iPad or something. I literally just like pen and paper because that's the lowest barrier to entry. It sucks afterward because I have pages of emails to input when I get home, and sometimes people's handwriting sucks, but for me, it's for me, it's all, how do I make it as easy as possible for people? And then, that's where my whole email list has come from is acquiring people through conventions. I do offer on my website, like if you sign up for my, this is all my like art newsletter stuff, because we don't have a game specific newsletter. On my website, I offer a free digital sketchbook. So if you sign up for my email list on my website, you get an email that's like, here, download your free little PDF sketchbook, which is actually the first Kickstarter I did. That's where that sketchbook came from. So I just give a PDF version of it now that it's been a few years. So
I don't have a whole lot to add, but I'll just kind of share what I know. Like I do have an email list. You can sign up for it on my website. It's just right there. I also did the same thing at conventions. I'd have a clipboard, pen and paper. They can sign up. The great thing about an email list that I think people don't appreciate enough is that people are actually inputting their information because they want to know more about what you do. They want to support you. They want to learn more about what you're doing. They are actively, telling you, I want this.
Yep.
So, if you're an artist, just, and you have a website, just, make a form thing that they can fill out, so they can add their email to your list. And I'm a dummy, and I haven't been using my emailing list, mostly because I've been preoccupied with, with commissions and things like that.
Yeah.
But as I want to get things, churning again the end of this year as well as next year, I'm going to be, sending some more of that stuff out. Because that's important. That's like some of the best engagement you can get, because like you post on Instagram and your followers might miss it. You post on Facebook, your followers might miss it. You'll be live on Twitch and people might miss your stream, but like email, that's a notification straight to them. They can open it whenever.
I would argue the email list is even more important. Like it's like almost way more important than social media. Like
I agree totally.
Having an email list of a bunch of people is so much closer to getting somebody to buy whatever you're doing than somebody following you on Instagram. So
100%.
So both of you said conventions as part of your answer. Now that we're not in conventions, do you guys have ideas for taking in the slack on that?
Website.
Well, that begs the question: how do you get people to your website?
See, unfortunately, I don't know if we're going to have a replacement for conventions. I know that online conventions tried a thing, but it's not the same.
To interrupt you. I don't mean specifically a replacement for conventions, but in conventions being the main source of your growing your email list, do you have ideas for how to take in the slack on growing your email list in lieu of conventions?
Yeah, I can speak to this a little bit because the company I worked for was one of the web design jobs I had was a college textbook online seller. So if you're trying to build your email list just from your website, there's no conventions involved. Obviously, you're gonna the main source of where people are going to sign up for that is through your purchase pipeline. So they're coming into your website, they're buying something from you, they also sign up for your email list. It's really good to retain these people because it's somebody who's already bought something from you. So the way that you get people into that ecosystem is you advertise. I actually did some calculations after conventions got shut down for the year, and I realized I was spending $17,000 on hard costs to go to shows a year. And I went, I could instead maybe spend that money on advertising and not have to run around the United States. Now, don't get me wrong, I still love doing conventions, but like my hard costs a year, like it's an investment. I get that money back because I do well enough at shows, but like I was doing 8 or 9 shows a year, and it cost me $17,000 in like travel costs, convention fees, things that are like not invested specifically in my inventory. Like that's not even product, right? So if I was going to take some of that money and be like, all right, I'm going to put it into PPC ads or whatever and bring people to my website and hopefully sell them something and then get them signed up for my email list. It's kind of similar to selling at a convention, but the biggest difference is they're not meeting you face to face. And I think, Blake, that's the big thing about what you said is that face to face interaction is super important. People are interested in you, right? They're not just interested in what you're making, especially as an artist, right? Like people want to be involved and invest in you as a person and not just your artwork. So,
and to expand on that point right there, that's where Twitch has really, Twitch has made my current career because of that. Especially now that conventions are gone, this is my only sort of pseudo face to face. Really, it's just my face and I look at a chat box. Right. But this is the closest you can get to that interpersonal customer relationship kind of thing, and it really helps. Without Twitch, if I was just just a website, just an Instagram page, there's no connection. You don't get any of that, and that's why conventions were so great for people, because you have that. You can chat with people, you can identify with people. You share the same interests. And Twitch is that too. It's probably the closest you can get to a convention right now. And so that's when people will want to know more about you, know more about your work, and hopefully eventually invest in what you're doing because of that connection.
You hear that, Twitch? Give us our fucking category back. And anyway, sorry, I slipped out for a second there.
We'll edit that out of the recordings.
No, we won't. Well, I'm going to turn the volume up, and it's going to repeat for like the next 10 minutes before we come back to the conversation. 17K at conventions, man, that's impressive. And Okay, yeah, I'll qualify that to say I'm sure it's maybe less than others, but probably more than some. When you think about turning that into, you know, advertising, you say that you've already like kind of looked into the numbers. Do you feel confident that you can, you know, make a return on investment by translating some of that into investment, and that will actually like pay off in the long run?
Okay, so I'll preface this by I haven't done it yet. But
no, yeah, totally.
I know, like I said, the situation where I described before, where I'm not going to throw money at bad ads, where if I can find an ad that will let's say I want to sell a playmat through my website, and I can find an ad that will cost me $5 to get somebody to buy that playmat. I'm just going to add that into the cost of my playmat, and if I'm making money at the end of that, then there's no reason why I shouldn't throw tons and tons and tons of money at that ad, because you're literally just printing money, right? Like, as long as you're profiting and you're bringing people in, there's no reason why you wouldn't throw money at it. So as long as I can find that ad, which again, I don't know if I can, but the thought experiment was, man, that's a huge chunk of money to be throwing away. It's not really, again, it's sort of advertising, right? It's like, you know, my full income was conventions. So if I'm spending that amount of money, I'm getting more than that back. So, you know, what does that end up looking like? And then there's sort of a cost analysis of like, all right, well, I can get a better return on my investment through conventions, or can I get a better return on investment through online advertising? And that's a question I don't know the answer to yet.
So if the person doesn't have the money in pocket, but they still, like, let's say they do some experimenting with a little amount of money they do have, like $200, and they find something that works. Do they take out a loan at that point so they can keep pressing that add button?
If you factor in the amount of interest you'd have to pay on that loan, then yeah, I don't see why not. It's all just an equation, right? You're just figuring out like, okay, at the end of this, I come out with more money. Now, sometimes it might not be worth the effort because you're only coming out with pennies, but as long as, you know, you're making money, I don't see why you wouldn't do something.
Yeah, I know a lot of artists that, you know, pay the upfront costs for their convention year on their credit card, and then they just pay it off as the convention season goes. So I'm not advocating that, but at the same time, you know, I know artists that do it and it works well for them, and
I would say take small risks, right? Like I'm not throwing $17,000 at one show or whatever and hoping that I make that back. Right. It's like it built up to that amount after 5 years. You know, it was like, okay, I started at this little show, I made money. I'm going to go to a bigger show, I made more money. I'm going to go to a bigger show, I made more money. Okay, now I'm only going to bigger shows, and so that, you know, you end up, you know, with pretty high costs at some point. So
that seems to be a pretty common theme throughout. Start small with Kickstarters, with the Patreon, with whatever.
I mean, the worst mistake you can do is throw, you know, tens of thousands of dollars at something that's maybe not even fully developed. You know, like you really gotta, you know, like with Kickstarter, I probably jumped the gun. Even my first Kickstarter was a deck of playing cards. I probably should have done something simpler, like, you know, prints, and just, you know, to get a handle on what Kickstarter actually is. If I had jumped in with a full-fledged, you know, board game, miniatures, you know, expansions, all this stuff, like, the chances of flopping are so high. Or conventions. If my first convention was San Diego Comic-Con, like, you know, when I don't even have a much of a body of work yet or anything like that, the expenses are so high, you're likely to, you know, hurt yourself. So yeah, start small. If you're doing conventions, do some small local show first. My first show was Tucson Comic-Con. It was like $100 table, tiny little show, and I had my first experience there. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe this could work, and then do shows after that.
And there's also, like, this is also how, like, risk averse you are. Like, there will be setbacks. You know, like, there's times when you invest money and you don't get it back. And you know, I did a anime expo one year, and it was not a good idea. I ended up paying, I think, $2,500 for a table in the exhibitor section, and it was off in a weird corner that I didn't realize how, like, blocked off I would be, and I barely came out of there breaking even. I think I got pretty lucky to come out of there breaking even. So sometimes you take risks and they pay off, and sometimes they don't. It's just a matter of, like,
sometimes they don't. Phoenix was a great show for me. That was a more expensive one for me anyway. My typical budget. Denver and Seattle were bad ones for me, but that was all because I was too cheap to pay for good placement at both of those shows, and I got wrecked for it.
Oh yeah, I mean that's like a hard lesson too. Like trying to figure out like, okay, how big of a risk do I have to take to get this to pay off? And then when you take like a too small of a risk and it doesn't pay off, and then you're like, well, would it have paid off if I took a bigger risk, or am I just going to walk away? You know, like
well, that falls into your Facebook advertising too. If you put in $25, $50, you're not going to get anything back.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
This does remind me though of something that Gavin, you said much earlier. That for all intents and purposes, well, I'm going to horribly paraphrase what you did say. That functionally, your product should be finished before your Kickstarter. Now, help me understand that a little bit, because I imagine something like a board game, or the game that you made, which may have lots of moving parts, or like Blake was talking about, a game with like miniatures and stuff like that. What does it look like to finish something like that before the Kickstarter? And then you're saying that the Kickstarter is basically just to fund it. So what are we talking about in terms of those phrases? Funding it versus making a finished. Because if I think about making a finished product to kickstart, what am I funding after that? Just the manufacturing and distribution of it?
Yeah. I mean, basically just So that there's websites for this kind of thing that will print you just a single copy. I think gamecrafter.com is the place to go if you want to just get like a one-off. And they'll print all the cards. It'll cost a lot more is part of the thing, because you're just making one. So I think it was somewhere in the like $5 or $10 range for a copy off there, and it's not going to be as good quality, but it lets you know like, here's the finished product. Like I have the whole thing and I can hold it in my hands and I know exactly what I'm going to be manufacturing. And then and then there's also like press proofs and things you get from the manufacturers, but I wanted to be in a position where I had like no artwork left to do. And then I had all the graphic design done, and I knew what was going to be on the box, and I knew what the logo was, and I knew like everything was just ready to go out the door. And it's part of the reason why we kept the scope small for the first project, because as you get bigger, you start to not be able to take those that's kind of a weird risk too, right? Because I invested a whole lot of time in this game, and what happens if it doesn't fund? And that's again another risk, right? So if you're trying to make a bigger game, I think you can take a smaller risk and be like, okay, well, as long as you know how to get the game done in a timely manner afterward, you could get funding first, especially if you're not an artist. I don't know how many people that watch your show aren't artists, but that's a huge chunk of money that you would need to come up with ahead of time. So if you just bought a few pieces of art that you were going to use for marketing, and then you're going to fund the rest of the art after the Kickstarter, that's still, something you just have to kind of work your way through. But with the situation that I'm in, we're making games that we have the ability to make every piece of. So we're like, let's just do it all ahead of time before we put it on Kickstarter, so we know that we can fulfill quickly.
So you guys had picked manufacturers ahead of time. Could you guys walk through like how you chose which manufacturers to pick, and what the general cost was for each of your respective products?
Sure. Well, first I'll piggyback off of what Gavin was saying earlier on the other question. I made sure to get everything done beforehand so that there was no work to do after the Kickstarter was done. Because I was worried about making sure it did get done. And really what you're funding, what Joby was talking about, at least what I was trying to fund was just the product. If I was trying to fund my time to develop it, that goal would have been way higher. And it probably would never be met, so unfortunately you have to eat the cost of the art and design and everything. And that's, I don't know if there's any other way around it. Except unless you do other funding things like Patreon, that could be a way of funding the time, and then Kickstarter is funding the production. But anyway, choosing a manufacturer, there are so many custom playing card companies that you can go through. Especially with like the playing card arena, most people really, really want a lot of collectors want USPC, or I think I said it right, the United States Playing Card Company, and like nobody else. I had some people really complain that I didn't choose that company, but I didn't choose that one because I wanted more customization options. Like I wanted my product to look a specific way with specific packaging, with specific, I wanted to design everything the way I wanted to design it at a good price point. So yeah, a lot of research went into picking the different company that fit my product. But I also already had all of that designed. Like I had a few companies in mind, but then I already had the product envisioned and everything, so that I didn't make compromises based on the company that I chose. Because some companies, you'll have to adjust to what they need. Like like maybe board games, you have to have tokens this size for it to, otherwise they won't manufacture it or whatever. So you got to do luckily I was able to find a company that was really flexible with what I wanted. Sometimes you have to do the research for pick your company beforehand, so that when you're drafting up your boards, your decks of cards, your miniatures, whatever, there won't be major adjustments later that could then cost you more time or more money. So yeah, that research is super important.
Yeah, I mean, we basically did the same thing where we just did a bunch of research and figured out who was printing what games, and then we contacted them to figure out what the price would be versus the quality that they were going to give, and that's just how we chose the company we did. We ended up going with Panda, just because the price was better and the quality was either the same or better. So
buy samples.
Yeah,
you must buy samples.
Yeah.
So a lot of the manufacturing actually comes from China, which mentioned with Panda, for example. Now that, not to get political, but there is some hubbub going on with how Hong Kong was the linchpin to get into China, and now that Hong Kong is losing their independence, essentially, that all may come in the air. So what advice would you get to look for more either domestic or non-Chinese manufacturers?
This is something I'm going to have to look into soon because their second game is getting close to being done. So I don't have a definitive answer yet. But our strategy will be kind of probably similar in that we're going to just try to find all the companies we can and figure out who's doing what and figure out the quality to price ratio and go with whatever makes sense.
Yeah, it all just comes down to researching. There are also companies in Europe that I've heard good things about as far as playing card manufacturing goes. And then there's always options in the US too. You might have to pay more for those services, but then you just budget that into your goal for a Kickstarter.
Politics aside or whatever, I would have preferred to print in the United States, but it's so much more expensive that it's prohibitive. Like it's just for someone who's at the level that I am, it just was not possible, so.
Right.
Yeah. I'm curious too about the, on the shipping end of the manufacturing and the distribution end of it. I'm especially in a situation like yours, Gavin, where you are making, it's not a huge box, but it's a box. And if you I don't know how many you even had made. I can only imagine that if you had all of those sent to your house, you would be walking through tiny little narrow hallways surrounded by boxes. And you mentioned earlier that you had a setup, where you didn't want to have them shipped to the US just so you could ship them back over somewhere. So is it for any given product, is it pretty common to be able to find a scenario where the distribution can be handled by a third party as well, and you don't have to receive stacks and stacks of product, whatever it may be?
Yeah, again, that was part of the strategy, was like, how do we find these distribution hubs? And you have to pay for a warehouse to store your stuff and ship it out for you. There's a fee involved. So that was part of our costs. Yeah, is that just so I don't have to store everything in my house and ship everything out of my garage. Yeah, you end up paying more money. But at a certain scale, it's just, you're right, it's not feasible. Your entire house is filled with your product. So
yeah, it depends on the scale. I didn't have to worry about that because it was just playing cards and it was 1,000 of them. It sounds like a lot, but actually when they were dropped off at my door, it didn't look like there was enough.
Yeah, you're like, what is this?
Yeah, I was like, wait a minute. there's no way this is 1,000 decks of cards, but it was. So, and I was able to fit, all of them, all the boxes in my closet. It wasn't that big a deal. So it certainly depends on the scope. Yeah, board games, you might want to, figure something out. If it's smaller, like prints or pins or whatever, like you can do that at your house. That's no problem.
Yeah,
you could. I'm thinking of a calculation though of like even something as small as a pin, where it's just like open the envelope, put it in, but then you have to make up all of the printing labels and all, so I'm thinking of like estimating the time that it's going to take you for any given packaging operation. Assume you're paying yourself $30 an hour for that, get a lump sum, and then figure out, okay, how much is it going to cost me extra to have a third party do this? Is X equal to Y? That gives you the answer, whether you want to do it yourself or not, I guess.
I think again that totally depends on the Kickstarter. I was able to ship out 197 orders in like 2 or 3 days, but I had a system already set up. I had my scale, I had my label maker, I had a stamps.com account, I had everything set up. I just I had my boxes next to me, my product next to me, the wrapping. I had everything just set up and just fold and go. And I just watched a lot of Netflix and. And just got it done in like 2 or 3 days. But obviously that's small items. That's really easy. But things like, more complicated, larger orders with add-ons and things like that, that's where things get really complicated. You'll want to figure out how to budget. Either, I think, was it, I'm forgetting her name now. She did like a really cool monster book. Gosh, what's her name?
Crystal?
Yes, thank you, Crystal Sully. So she had a whole bunch of friends come over to help, package the books with their add-ons, the prints and everything, and paid them all in pizza. Like you can figure out ways to get all this done, or pay a third-party company to distribute it from their warehouse. They'll have people that do everything. A lot of places have systems in place to do everything right. So there's so many different ways to do it. Again, that's just all in figuring out, what you're selling, researching what your packaging is going to be. Can you handle it yourself? Yeah. Okay. No big deal. If it's going to be overwhelming and take you months to put these packages together, get somebody to help you or pay somebody to do it.
Yeah. I think you should think about it in those terms in like every aspect of what you're working on too, right? So I'm at a point now where I'm like, okay, well, I'm working on my second game and there's a lot of art involved. And I'm sitting here going, well, I could spend a ton of time and do all this art, or I could bring some people in to help me out and get it done sooner, which means we can get to the Kickstarter sooner, which means we can get the product out sooner, which means we can get to the next project sooner. And I'm starting to realize that like I am sort of becoming a like kind of getting in the way of the growth of the company in a way that's like, okay, well, if I just continue to do everything, then I slow everything down. So, it's similar with even shipping a Kickstarter. If you're at a scale where doing it yourself makes the most sense, just know that you're going to have to build in that time into your own schedule and take time away from whatever else you could be doing to just do shipping. And then it's like, well, what is that time worth? And how much would it cost you to have somebody else do it? So
it makes me think of that the episode of The Office where he starts the competition paper company and they're doing all of the deliveries out of his van and like.
I've never seen Office, so I wouldn't know.
Well, lots of other people have, Moose. So anyway, next question. Assuming that the work is not a factor, which it is, that sounds crazy, but just bear with me. Do you have a sense of, kind of how closely it's reasonable to stack Kickstarters? If you said, earlier, there are some people that use Kickstarter sort of as a business model.
Yeah.
But do you have any insight into what is reasonable in terms of timing, how close they would happen?
Well, my advice, and this is not what you have to do, but my advice is do not run another Kickstarter until you've fulfilled the previous one.
Okay.
And that is, I think that it's slapping your customers in the face a little bit. I'm thinking of it in terms of like company perceptions or like brand perceptions, I guess, and like how you want to treat your customers. But But if you were in 2 different audience pools, then and you think you could pull it off, you could run Kickstarter simultaneously. Ooh. I don't know if I would though. I don't know if I would.
Wow, I wasn't in and the question I wasn't even assuming.
Oh, you mean like how far even more? Okay, so
yeah, separate from each other.
I think it depends on the scale of the project and how much you're dipping back into your own audience, right? You only want to go back so many times and be like, hey, here's something that costs $40, and here's something that costs $100, and here's something that costs buy it. You know, it's like I mean, although, okay, what I will say is when, I worked for the college bookstore company, we did some experiments of like how many emails can you send out, like how many email blasts can you send out before people start unsubscribing to your email list. And the answer is way more than you think.
Oh.
So we were at we're like, okay, well, let's send out 1 a week. This is kind of our normal schedule. It's like, well, what happens if we send 2 a week? What happens if we send 3 a week, 4 a week? What happens if we're emailing every day? And it's like,
wait, did you actually do that?
We tried, yeah. During the times of the year where we were really busy, there's rush periods where people are, going to college and they need books. And so we're like, okay, well, this is a period of time where we need to hit them every day and make sure that people are remembering, oh, I can just get my books from this company. And not as many people as you would think dropped off. It was strange. So, yeah. So, that being said, I would, I guess, have to experiment before I would know how often you could. I would. My gut says once a month would be the most you could do, but I don't know if that's true.
Oh, even that.
Right. It's like, and that's running. Maybe you don't even have to run a 30-day campaign. Maybe running a 15 or a 10-day campaign. But like, I think that if you did a small enough project, let's say you wanted to do a print, and you're like, all right, I'm gonna have this one print, and you can add these other prints as add-ons. You're running it sort of like a convention booth. You run one a month with a new piece every month. I think that could work, maybe.
I think some of the advice we got.
If it's a really well-oiled machine, then I think you could do it really quick. For me, I'd do like 1 a year maximum.
Yeah. If it was a bigger project, I wouldn't do them that close together.
Well, I know that there's also
the advice we had gotten previously from other prior guests on the show was to not just advertise every time you have something to only when you have something to
sure.
So if you're going to email them once a month, just talk about some other things every other month, right? Instead of just being focused on sell.
Well, there's like the 80-20 rule, right? It's like, okay, 80% of the time you're talking about just whatever, and the 20% of the time you're actually advertising what you're doing. But yeah, that's
Did you
it's
guys
like the golden ratio, but for advertising.
Right.
This thought just sort of randomly occurred to me. Other guests on other episodes have talked about little like kind of appreciation things that they've done for customers, like gift cards or promo codes, stuff like that. Did you guys do anything like even as simple as like little thank you notes, or like what kind of customer appreciation stuff did you do, if anything?
So this isn't really Kickstarter related, but last year I sent out a Krampus card to all of anybody that had bought anything from my website and anybody that was on my like my mailing lists and stuff, patrons and everything. I made up I don't have one, otherwise I'd show you, but it was like a foil stamped Krampus card that just said, 'tis the season or something. He was drinking hot chocolate. It was kind of cool, but I just sent that out too.
I got it. And I loved it.
Cool.
It was really cool.
I'll probably do another one this year, and then I'm like, let me just see how I can build something once a year into what I'm doing to just be like, hey, I really appreciate that you're part of my life and that you're involved in what I'm doing, and just and it really wasn't that expensive. I think I spent a few $100s on it and sent it out to everybody, and just to say thanks. So yeah, I do think doing some of that is a good idea.
Yeah,
was that the question?
Yeah. Blake did nothing.
I don't. Yeah, I have done nothing.
Blake's not thankful.
No, definitely not.
Blake is sending us all a turkey for Thanksgiving.
Oh, that'd be great. I'm looking forward to it.
It's actually made of turkey, but so yeah, there are a lot of things that I keep thinking about doing. to be more appreciative of my fans and things like that. Right now, it's only been, on stream, I'm sure to, audibly thank everybody who's around. But as far as like sending stuff, I really haven't. I haven't done anything like that, which is unfortunate. But I'm still trying to figure out this the online side of everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been I've only been doing this 2 years, so there's a lot of learning, a lot of growth, and that's one thing I need to be better about.
Well, I think that there's probably stuff that's like lower barrier to entry than like sending out, a card or whatever.
Sure, yeah.
Like if somebody wanted to send out, an email, like again, like I give out my digital sketchbook when somebody signs up, I could like, give out something digital. That way there's a whole lot less, there's no costs necessarily involved. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know, Gavin, you've sort of hinted a little bit at future projects, future Kickstarters, I assume. So maybe you can start, but Blake, please follow up. What future Kickstarter plans you guys have, and to the extent that you can talk about it, maybe tell us a little bit about what the ideas are.
There are I mean, many ideas. The thing is sharing the ones that will actually happen.
Yeah, don't end up putting your foot in your mouth yet.
I know, and I already do it all the time on my streams. Like, oh, dude, I should do. I'm totally gonna do this, and then I don't. I know that I want another deck of cards for sure. I want to expand upon this OmenShard idea. I have a I do have a board game, but it's going to be years out. It's still like really early. There's so many things. I even have like a novel that I started writing. Who knows how long?
Yeah.
Like there's so many things.
I know those feels.
Oh yeah. I've got a whole bunch of play mats that are going to be on my store next week. I've got even silly things like I threw up a bunch of designs on an online t-shirt store. Like I'm just kind of throwing everything up there that I've been thinking about all this year and just never did it. And now I'm just finally starting to roll out some of those things. Mm-hmm. So there's always going to be more. It's just a matter of actually doing it.
Yep. We have our second game coming to Kickstarter shortly. We're about to go into beta. We are announcing the beta on our Kickstarter, I think on this Tuesday. So our Kickstarter, following will be aware of the game. We're also inviting some of our Kickstarter backers, if they want to join our Discord and participate in beta testing, as a way to be like, hey, we're really glad that you were supportive of the game, and we wanted to bring you in here and get your input before we're finalizing the second game. So that Kickstarter is probably coming. I don't want to nail it down too much. Sometime next year, hopefully spring. But we have quite a few things to do still. We haven't shot the video yet. We haven't figured out exactly what the tiers are going to be. I haven't done much of the artwork yet, so there's still some hurdles there. That's really the big Kickstarter thing I have coming up. I've thought about kickstarting an art book for my arts, just my art business. But I don't know. I'm kind of I like the idea, but I almost would rather do something more themed. I would rather like pick a specific, like, okay, this book is about this, and thoughts of novels like Blake was bringing up and things. But yeah, just for now, I think it's just the game.
So speaking of your Discord server, you started expanding that to more creators. Do you want to talk about who you want to be a member of that community?
Yeah, I don't want to do too much plugging, but
no, plug.
This is the time for plugging.
Yeah. Okay. So
it's the very end of the show. No one is listening now, anyway. So.
Perfect. If you made it this far, no. No, we started a podcast. Will be coming out once a week. You can find it on YouTube. It's called the Distraction Makers, and the idea is that I kind of want to talk about all things creativity, all things like distraction is apparently one of the dictionary definitions for a game. So we were like, oh, cool, that's funny. Like, so Distraction Makers talks to games or art or movies or whatever. We just want to talk about creative stuff. Within the Discord, we want to just be a kind of a tight-knit community of creators. Whatever avenue you're in, we've got different tags for game makers or art makers or comic makers or whatever. But I feel like there's the ability to kind of bring creatives together is going to help everybody. So, somebody wants to make a game, maybe they're not artistically inclined, but somebody who's an artist that wants to do the artwork on a game, well, let's try to bring those two people together and see what happens. We do weekly meetups for game tests. Sometimes that's just the game makers, so you can get more in-depth critique, and sometimes that's for the whole community. Yeah, that's kind of what we got going on over there.
And cool. Blake is one of those people who has done art for other people's board games before.
Yeah, I've done art for several board games now. It's actually super fun.
Nice.
Yeah, really, really fun projects. I've been given a lot of creative freedom. What's also interesting is being like the one artist that does the whole board game.
Yeah,
you kind of control all of it, and it's really, really fun. But yeah, maybe I'll plug my website a little bit. I check out OmenShard.com. You'll find my own fantasy world there, a little bit of stuff. There's some lore, there's some art, links to other places too, as well as a store if you're interested in any of that merch at all, including my playing card deck that we talked about earlier. Still a lot of those available for sale. But yeah, there's always new projects going on. You can sign up for the email list. Scroll down to the bottom. I'll be sending out some emails actually tomorrow about some stuff that's going on, plans for the future. And and then I stream on Twitch most weeknights, some more than others, mostly because I have a new baby, so sometimes get a little busy.
What?
Yeah, thank you.
Oh wait, that happened.
Congratulations! What?
That did happen, Joby. Yeah.
Dude, I've been out of the loop. When did that happen?
No, you're good. About a little over a month ago. Yeah. It's been really exciting. Really exciting.
That's why he hasn't been totally consistent with his streaming schedule.
Yeah, that's why my streaming has been, here and there. Sometimes in midday. Sometimes,
just bring the baby with you. It's fine.
Yeah, I feel like such a terrible internet friend.
No, dude, don't worry about it, man. You got your own babies at home, so you're good.
Fair enough. And P.S. all of this information for both of you guys will be in the show notes for cool. all the recordings on the podcast and on YouTube and stuff like that. So anybody not catching that information now, please follow up with all of the locations that the recordings end up if you want to find out about that kind of stuff.
Wait, a couple more things.
Sorry.
If you want to see my artwork, go to ggvart.com. If you want to see my game company, go to lastditchgames.com. That's me. That's all my stuff. Go ahead. Sorry.
So funny enough, there was one question that a couple questions more that we didn't get to, but one of them was the one that actually started this whole decision to have you two on this show.
Yeah.
And it was in regard to creating an artificially low goal to launch your Kickstarter with, and whether or not that was slimy or a good idea. So do you want to go Blake and then Gavin?
So because I considered the same thing, right? Because I thought about my own habits on, what Kickstarters do I click on to look at? And almost always I would click on the ones that were, that said, funded really quick. Because then I would be like, oh, there's hype over this, so it must be interesting. It must be good. So I'll click on it and look at it, and sure enough, this thing's pretty sweet, right? Whereas other Kickstarters that were like really slow to fund, or like maybe they had really high goals, even if the dollar amount that people were buying into it was really, really high, if the goal wasn't met, I was less interested. Just my first impression anyway, I was less interested in those Kickstarters. So I thought when I was running my own, maybe I could do the same thing, but then I also thought about the risk involved in that. If I don't reach that dollar amount, or if I do hit exactly that dollar amount, say I actually need $5,000, but I say I only need 1,000. If I only hit 1,000, I'm already out $4,000. Like that hurts.
Yep.
So I would advise against it. I would say make your goal exactly what you need. Because that way, if you do meet that exact goal, at least those expenses are covered. You'll still be out, some time, well, obviously time, but also some other hidden expenses. You'll still have to, be out that, but at least you will make the bulk of your expenses.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
I would just second most of that. The only thing I would add is that I would figure out how much everything's going to cost you, and I'd add another 20% on top of it.
Yeah, that's what you should do.
Because there's always going to be stuff that comes up that you didn't think about. And also, I know that there's a lot of board game companies that do this, where like, especially in the card game space, because I'm like 29,000 is a really high goal for card game stuff. And we were a little concerned about it, and it did take us a little bit longer to fund because of it. But I'm really glad that we put it at that number because, yeah, like Blake's saying, if we had put it at 10 or 15,000 and only hit that goal, we would have been screwed. We would have been like, well, I guess we got to come up with $5,000, $10,000, whatever, to get this project out the door.
Right. So what I've seen was,
sorry, real quick. I've known other game companies, other game company leads and things who fund their own Kickstarter. It gets close to the end and they're like, I'm going to dump $2,000 in here just so it funds because I want to make this game. Don't do that. Let me tell you this quick story about a friend of mine who started his first game, Kickstarter. It was going to fund, but it was going to just barely get over the finish line. And so he was like, okay, I'm going to cancel this. He cancels it before the project's done. He tells everybody that, hey, I'm going to make some adjustments and relaunch. So he takes all those backers that he had accumulated over 20 days or whatever, and then relaunches and says, okay, back it again now. And all of them flooded in. He made over $1 million. I was like, what the why? Why didn't I do this? Why didn't I do this?
Yeah, so
you can get away with that once.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, we heard from Metal Weave Games, Andreas, on the second episode of the podcast, was if they set the artificially low goal and it doesn't like slam it immediately, then they cancel it, and then they try again later.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So
I'm more of a fan of just following the rules and snowballing, maybe not doing things that are a little shady. But when I saw him do that, I was like, okay, you can do that one time, and it's with your first Kickstarter. Because if you get a whole bunch of canceled projects on your account, people are going to go like, what's wrong with this company?
Yeah.
So
plan your timing and stuff too. Time of the year matters. I probably picked a bad time. End of summer is usually not a good time to run Kickstarters. Also, very beginning of the year is not a good time.
Yeah, after tax season.
That's the best time.
Yeah, right around there. Yeah,
I picked a rough time, but still ended up being successful. I was very lucky there. I think if I ran it at a different time, it would have been better.
Yeah, be careful running toward the end of the year too.
Yeah, I was going to say that's an interesting idea. Timing hadn't occurred to me. So not doing it. Because I don't know, there might be this sort of intuition that, I'll run it right after Thanksgiving because people want to buy Christmas gifts or whatever.
I mean, you could try, but you're asking for problems, like,
I mean,
if you make a bunch of money and then you get close to the end of the year, you got to change the way you're going to do your taxes so that you don't end up paying on money that you don't actually have because you have a huge chunk of money in your account, but it's really just going to shipping costs that you haven't paid yet. And there's ways to do that, but you have to hire an accountant to take care of it. You're probably not going to be able to do that yourself. So.
And even then, are you going to be able to deliver by Christmas? Because that's usually the intent of those backers. This is happening after Thanksgiving. Oh, sweet! I'm going to buy this with the intent of it being a Christmas present, and then you're not even going to have your product in time.
Always under promise and over deliver.
Always. Yeah, I set my delivery goal like the Kickstarter was in August. The delivery was like October. I was delivering like first week of September.
Yep.
And people were really happy with that. So
nice.
Cool. Well, Moose, you got any more questions?
So you guys had two widely different scales of Kickstarter, but neither of you were actually below $5,000 in terms of your goal. Do you have any thoughts on like a mini Kickstarter? Is that viable or not really worth your time?
My first Kickstarter goal was only $500, and I think I made $2,000 or $2,500. So totally doable.
Anything's viable. I mean, yeah, you know, you do a Kickstarter for $100. You know, $100, do $5 pins. You know, or I don't know what.
No, that's a great idea.
Anything works. If you have an idea, if you're not familiar with Kickstarter but you want to try it, you have this thing you want to try, just do a small Kickstarter. You know, and keep it easy. Even if you're probably not going to make a whole lot of money at margins that you know, scale that small, but who cares? You're trying to learn, and at least you'll have like some expenses covered or whatever, so you can figure out how it works, how you can manage shipping, and then your next Kickstarter you can scale it up or whatever.
I mean, technically, I made more money on my small Kickstarter.
That happens too. You know, sometimes you'll make more on a print Kickstarter than you would just because of expenses and whatnot.
Yeah. I mean, Kickstarter numbers, but not overall. Yeah,
But yeah, anything works. The thing is, your fans want more. They want more of you. They want more of your stuff. So just do it. Just give it to them.
It's one of those more cake things.
It is. It is.
Well, fantastic. You guys were coming up on 2 hours. We
already
we melt into a puddle at 2 hours, but I want to wrap it up with a final question. Aside from your guys' personal projects or, you know, things that you guys have going on for yourselves, Blake, you start. One thing in the world that's going on right now that you're excited about.
Well, I have a baby, and she is amazing. It's probably the most exciting part of my life right now, and probably will be forever. I don't think there's anything else for me that's worth talking about that beats that.
I know it's
Warhammer. You could talk about Warhammer movies.
Oh, okay. I guess I've picked up a new hobby over COVID, and that was Warhammer miniature building and painting. It's a nice hobby that that helps me use some creative energy, but without sapping drawing and painting. I guess I'm not sure how to well, okay, yeah. So like when I was doing personal art, I would feel guilty that I'm not working on client work, but I still want to do creative things.
Yep.
So mini painting ended up being that little escape where it was still creative, but I didn't feel guilty about it because it's not sitting at my tablet looking at, you know, my invoices and all that stuff, and looking at Photoshop and thinking, oh crap, I need to open that file or whatever. So it was a really good escape. So that's exciting. Also, it's a fun game, and apparently I'm pretty good at it. Matt, nice. I hope you're listening. You really need to learn how to play the game.
I had my Warhammer time at one point. It's great. It's just there's a lot. It's a lot.
Oh, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah.
Well, Gavin, same question to you.
I think I'm going to bring it around to things that have helped me get through this period of time, this pandemic, and that things have been, you know, rough in general. I started aquascaping, which is essentially it's really fancy fish tanks.
Okay.
Fish were something that I had when I was a kid, and there's a story that my family always tells that's I invited one of my friends over to pet my fish one time. So I'd like scoop them up from my hand. You want to pet my fish? Yeah. So I started getting sort of back into that world and realized that there's like a whole artistry to fish tanks and understanding the chemistry involved, and it's this balance of like how to get nature to grow in a little box on your stand, right? It's in your living room. And it was also I noticed that there's a lot of things about it that cross over to my artwork. The way that I like to build my scenes and stack plants and imagery and put things together and rocks and I was like, oh wow, this is scratching a certain itch for me that I didn't think that it would. So that's something I've been excited about.
There's aquascaping
overlap, man. They really do. Like even miniature painting has made me a better digital painter.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think that goes for all creative things. That's part of the distraction makers thing is like, no matter the discipline, there's a lot of overlap in all kinds of different creative endeavors. So
there's aquascaping championships, and if you look at them, they're just amazing references for landscapes that you can use, like great lighting and great layouts.
Well, there's actually a lot of those Aquascaper guys will have concept artists come up with tanks for them. So
Holy
it's
shit.
a whole, it's a whole thing, man.
That's so cool. Yeah, I was actually thinking about doing stuff like that too with like Warhammer. You know, since a lot of stores are closed and you can't play in them, you need to play at home. And so I've been thinking about building terrain and stuff like that. And as I'm thinking about that, like, dude, these terrain could make great references for paintings.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah. Another thing I think that's like really taught me is that like it's an art form that's not 100% under your control. Like sometimes when you're trying to control it too much, it backfires and you end up with a whole bunch of algae and like your tank looks awful because you were like pushing something too hard, or it's this really interesting sort of dance with nature, I guess. That sounds really pretentious, but you know what
I mean. We're all artists here. I feel like pretension is like
comes with the territory.
Yeah, if someone's not being pretentious, we're doing something wrong. You guys, thank you so much. This has been so great. I say this at the end of every podcast, but I also mean it at the end of every podcast. You guys got to come back on. Got to have both of you on individually if you're into it.
Sure.
There's so many more questions and things that we can talk about. But I'm gonna hit the end of the record button now and see you guys soon.